and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on church stories. I am Oyi Opala. Let's begin. Across southern Cameroon, a growing wave of insecurity and social challenges is leaving communities anxious and demanding urgent action, from violent attacks and reported kidnappings to mysterious deaths and the deepening crisis of drug abuse. Residents in different areas are facing mounting threats that continues to disrupt lives and raise questions about public safety. In Bali Nyonga, a shooting incident that left one person dead and two others injured has renewed fears among residents already concerned about insecurity in the area. In Kumba, the recovery of the decomposing body from a swamp has added to growing worries over the continued loss of lives amid persistent violence. Meanwhile, reports of passengers kidnapping while traveling from Bafoussam have further heightened concerns over the safety of road users. Beyond the security challenges, communities in Buea are also confronting the devastating effects of drug abuse, with women-led groups intensifying calls for stronger intervention, including the creation of rehabilitation centers to support victims and prevent further spread of the war. As these issues continue to unfold, affected communities are calling for decisive measures to restore safety, protect lives, and address the underlying social problems contributing to the growing instability. Well, let's get the news in full briefings, but first, the prime headlines. Here are the prime headlines for tonight. One killed, two injured in shooting attacks as Insecurity Resurfaces in Bali Nyonga. Decomposing body retrieved from swamp in Kumba as insecurity continues to claim lives across southern Cameroon. At least 7 passengers traveling from Bafoussam has been kidnapped. Also tonight, southern Cameroon's women sustain anti-drug protest calls for rehabilitation centers as drug crisis deepens. Southern Cameroon elites donate over 53.6 CFA million for Bamenda Regional Hospital rehabilitation. 8 killed, 9 injured in a crowd crush at evangelical service in Burundi. That's on the African scene, while Keir Starmer resigns as UK Prime Minister and the Boham sets to form new government. Now let's get the news in full briefings. At least 1 person was killed and 2 others injured after unidentified gunmen opened fire at a drinking spot near Ntafong Square in Bali Nyonga, Mbeshia, southern Cameroon on the evening of Sunday, 19 July 2026. The deceased, popularly known as Lexus, died at the scene. One of the injured victims, identified as Kumalo, is receiving treatment at a health facility, while the identity of the second injured person has not yet been established. The violence also coincided with a fire that damaged part of the roof of the recently renovated Bali grandstand at Ntafong Square. Videos shared on socials showed flames engulfing a section of the structure, with reports indicating that the facility sustained significant damage. The attack has renewed concerns over security in Bali Nyonga, a locality that had witnessed a relative decline in violence in recent months after years of war linked to the Amazonian War. The town has repeatedly been the scene of confrontations between government and the fighters, resulting in civilian casualties, displacement, and destruction of public infrastructure. Authorities have not yet issued an official report on the incident, and no individual or group has claimed responsibility for the attacks. The circumstances surrounding the shooting and the fire remains under investigation. The latest incident shows a fragile security situation in southern Cameroon, where sporadic attacks continues despite periods of relative calm. All right, as usual, we have our in-house analyst, Barrister Mbeshia, in the house. And Barrister, welcome to tonight's Undaunted.
Yeah, thank you for having me once more.
Barrister, tonight Bali Nyonga is on the news, and of course, Insecurity is starting our report for tonight. It's so sad that people are losing their lives for what they know nothing about, for what they are not even sure about. Well, this is the sad, sad state of issues right now in southern Cameroon. Let's get your thoughts on this, our first report.
Well, we had the opportunity to analyze all this insecurity within the country. And I've always said that it is the responsibility of government to secure the local citizens. And you don't just secure it by sitting around there and making pieces of papers. You have to get an adequate police force, because that's internal. You have to get an adequate police force that can investigate and bring those people to book. If it's kidnapping people, train the police who can capture those people who are kidnappers, because they are militarily armed. And so I've said it is a failure of the state. Would Ambazonian be different? Of course they would be different. And for me to let you know they would be different, we'll look back to what existed before. All of us are familiar with the thing they call the police school Motengene. That was the West Cameroon Police School. It was not a national police school. It was created in 1962, where the policemen were adequately trained for that. They were a civilian force. They didn't carry guns like they do today. They carried batons. And so that was their job. They were trained for that. And in addition to that, there was another part of the police force, which was called the Mobile Police Wing. They were also policemen. When they were trained to deal with people like kidnappers, they had the skills. They carry guns, shotguns, to confront those sort of criminals. And so this is where we are. When the government fails, because the government succeeds on planning plan how to fight against insecurity. You execute when the time comes by using the specialized forces or those specialized in the areas involved. And so that's why I've said that, look, this failure in Yaoundé has been perpetual. They have taken over our police force, our police training school in Motengene. They have rather transformed it into a school where they train their criminal people who adopt people and extort money from them by sitting at the corner of the road. Our police that were trained in 1962 never sat at the corner of the road. Our mobile wing that were meant to confront this type of kidnapping or any similar crimes never caught anybody. They never extorted money from anybody. If they investigated the crime, the perpetrators were brought to book. And so again, I've said this is a failure of the system. We should not have been there. We have been forced to be there. If we come back to where we are, we'll be better 10 times. We'll reinstitute our institutions. We'll get to practice when need be, and then we're able to move on. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. We'll move on to the next report. Well, the decomposing body of a man was retrieved from a swamp in Malabo, Kumba, on Monday morning by the Kumba Firefighting Brigade in yet another grim incident showing the worsening security situations across southern Cameroon. The disease has been identified as Fabrice, who reportedly worked as a cleaner at a private health facility in Kumba. The circumstances surrounding his death remain unclear, and it's not yet known how long his body had remained in the swamp before it was discovered. The recovery operation was carried out by the Kumba Firefighters Unit in the presence of medical personnel, the mayor of Kumba, Barrister Esema Moses, and the DO of Kumba, Ali Anago. The body was subsequently taken away for further examinations as investigation into the incident continues. The discovery adds to a growing number of unexplained deaths recorded across southern Cameroon in recent years, where decomposing bodies are increasingly being found in bushes, rivers, swamps, abandoned buildings, and alongside isolated roads. Many of these cases remain unresolved, with families often left searching for answers about the fate of missing relatives. The protracted armed war in southern Cameroon has significantly deteriorated the security environment, exposing civilians to persistent violence, kidnappings, targeted killings, and enforced disappearances. The insecurity has also complicated efforts by authorities to investigate suspicious deaths, particularly in remote areas. Human rights observers and local residents have repeatedly expressed concern over the rising number of unidentified or unexplained bodies recovered across the war areas, describing the trend as another consequence of a war that has left thousands dead, displaced thousands and hundreds, and created an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Well, authorities have not established whether the death of Fabrice is linked to the ongoing war or resulted from other circumstances. But what we know is that investigations are expected to determine the cause of the death and the events leading to the discovery of his body. Barrister Mbeshia, coming out of Bali Nyonga, we are in Kumba and we are talking about another dead body. Very sad situation here. What's your take?
Well, coming out of Bali Nyonga, we're in Kumba. But before Bali Nyonga, there was Bamenda, there was Nkwen, there was every place anywhere else in Amazonia where you found people, the streets were littered with dead people. And as I said then, I will say today, nobody is investigating, either deliberately or because they are so incompetent. But I think it is deliberate because we're not finding corpses everywhere in Douala, Bafoussam, and so on. Either way, they were investigated. And so I think the reason why they are not being investigated is we can link all these killings, dead bodies littering the streets, to the war, to the ongoing war. You cannot pretend that everything is normal. Where people are being killed and dumped everywhere. When people are killed and dumped like that without any investigation. If there's investigation, nobody is held accountable. Why? Because they will tell you, Kumba, Bali, Bamenda, Amazonia in general, it's a red zone where it is dangerous to live there. Why? Because there is war. Why? Because they came there attacking everybody. It is not new. They killed those people. Because one of the ones that they killed and accepted who did nothing. They've just developed some tactics of not accepting it anymore. Because the one that they killed deliberately, harmless people, and admitted that they killed them because they thought they were fighters. They faced something. They faced at least condemnation from around the world. Now they realize that admitting those things would cause them at least social condemnation. And so they kill people and dump them in the streets and keep quiet and pretend not to know the cause. And of course, they will never investigate. They, at the best, they will come out with a piece of paper claiming that investigations are ongoing. And then not that closes the whole matter. I've said this many times here. We have named so many. The records are there who were killed by the government, which government admitted killing the people. No investigations were ever established. Nothing came out. Because again, I will just cite this as the last one. Was this that we all know? That did nothing. They adopted him. He died. They told us. We never saw his corpse. Talk less of hearing how he died. And so this is a repetition. This is a continuation of what has been going on for years. Shall this end? It must end. Because it is morally bankrupt. And the headman of morality would think on this earth is nobody else other than the Pope. The Pope is the leader of a religious organization which is so powerful around the world. If he came there on their invitation of Yaoundé, I informed them that killing people is not an answer. Shooting others down and fighting left and right is not an answer to a problem. The answer to any difficulty is dialogue. And how do you do dialogue? You sit down and address the root causes of the whatever thing is the problem. And then answers will come out. As long as they don't come out to do that, they will continue to kill our people. But the question we'll ask ourselves is, how long shall we bear this? Can we give it up? Certainly not. If we give up, what excuse shall we tell these people who have died for doing nothing? And so we have to fight back. I've just given you examples of how a better Amazonia would exist. following the establishment of what we had behind to make sure these things don't happen. It will, and we'll have to fight and get out of it. It's never too late. It is better late than never. We were late, but we shall never continue to bear it. We'll fight our way out. We'll repair where it is possible. We'll build graveyards for those people, put symbolic tombs for those who cannot identify, and move on. It was a big mistake ever to think that we could join an enemy who was so bloodthirsty, an enemy who would not discuss anything with you. And so again, what happened in Kumba, what happened in Bali, what happened in Bamenda before and other places are just symptoms. They're a tip of the iceberg. And they're a warning to any Amazonian, any Southern Cameroonian to say, look, well, you were getting into a marriage and your first child died, the second dies, let me say out of witchcraft. That woman will not remain in that house. She will go away to save the ones that are left. Or at the very least, when she delivers more, they will not die in that house. And so again, this is a sign that we cannot live with these people. If we can live with them, let them investigate and punish these people. If they are not doing it, they have failed in their system as a government. They have failed for the reason why we ever joined them. And so again, Ambazonians, keep your eyes open. They have deceived us for so long, but you cannot deceive people forever. You can deceive them for some time. You cannot deceive us forever. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. And our next report says at least 7 passengers traveling from Bafoussam in the west area to Bamenda in the southern Cameroons were reportedly kidnapped after armed men intercepted their boats on Saturday night, July 18, in the latest incident, highlighting persistent insecurity along one of southern Cameroon's most critical highways. Well, according to drivers and transport operators who ply the Bafoussam-Bamenda road, the attacker stopped the commercial vehicle at an undisclosed location before forcing at least 7 passengers into the nearby bush. The assailant then fled with the victims to an unknown destination. Sources familiar with the incident said the kidnappers have since contacted relatives of some of the victims and are demanding ransom payment in exchange for their release. The identities of those abducted had not been made public as of the time of this reporting. Cameroonian authorities had yet to issue an official statement on the incident, while the exact location of the attack and the identity of the perpetrators remains unclear. The abduction has shown deep concern over the deteriorating security situation along the Bafoussam-Bamenda corridor, a vital transport route connecting Ambazonia with the rest of the country. The highway serves as a major commercial and passenger link, but has increasingly become a hotspot for kidnappers, armed attacks and extortion. For several years, travelers on road leading into Ambazonia have faced heightened security risks due to the ongoing war, which began in 2016 following protests by the English-speaking lawyers and teachers. The unrest later escalated into an armed war between the government of Cameroon and the government of the Southern Cameroon, seeking the independence of the Southern Cameroons. Although responsibility for Saturday's abduction has not been established, security agencies have been accused in previous incidents of kidnapping civilians, travelers, business people, and traditional rulers for ransom. Security forces have also intensified operations in the area, but attacks on civilians and commercial transports continues to be reported. Kidnapping for ransom has become an increasingly lucrative criminal enterprise in the Southern Cameroons, with transport operators frequently warning passengers about traveling after dark because of heightened risks of ambushes. Well, Saturday night's incident is the latest in a series of attacks that have fueled fears amongst residents and commercial drivers, many of whom rely on the Bafoussam-Bamenda highway despite the persistent security threats. Humanitarian organizations and right groups have repeatedly expressed concern over the impact of the war on civilian movement, economic activity, and access to essential services. Investigation into the latest abductions are expected to continue as families await the safe release of their victims. Very sad one there. Barrister Mbeshia, kidnapping seems to be on the rise, and this is just one of many that we have been reporting on numerous occasions. Let's get your point of view, Barrister.
Well, kidnapping is on the rise. There's no doubt about that. Kidnapping is part of the war. People are being kidnapped, money is being extorted from them. Kidnapping is a crime. Extorting money by way of ransom is a crime. These are very simple crimes to investigate. Because at the very least, they're asking for ransom. How are they asking for ransom? They are using a communication tool, which we call the telephone. Today, in the modern world, there is cyber security. All telephone messages are traceable. You can track down the callers, you can track down their numbers, you can track the spots from where they are calling. It is the easiest one you could do in Cameroon, because in Cameroon we have only 3 carriers. We have Camtel, one, we have Orange, two, we have MTN. Those are just the 3 carriers in the whole of Cameroon. And so if people are using these phones and calling for ransom, communicating with it, and government has not done anything, it would go to support my view that they just refuse to do it, not that they cannot do it. If they want to investigate those crimes, especially those happening in Ambazonia, they would. But they will not do it because they are indirectly responsible. They either get profit out of the extortion or they use that as a tool for fighting the war. And again, this is a way of punishing Ambazonians. Otherwise, I don't see why in 2026 some people would take others into custody, ask for ransom by telephone, and the whole government will say they don't know how to investigate, they cannot trace the people. No, you know the people, you can trace them, but you simply refuse to trace them, refuse to punish them for reasons which are best known to you. The simple reason that I believe, is simply they want to punish Ambazonians. Because when the people left Bafoussam and they were going to Bamenda, I'm sure they were kidnapped. If the car was stopped, it was somewhere in Ambazonia. It was not in Bunda. It was not between Bunda and Bafoussam. It was somewhere inside Ambazonia. And so, and there again in Bamenda, I've said, and we all know, we have everybody there. The governor is there. The gendarmes call them colonels. The brigade, whatever nonsense, they're all there. The police, the gendarmes are all there. Why are they not able to investigate these crimes? Why are they not able to bring the people to book? It is simply because they don't want to do it. And because they don't want to do it, we call them accomplices or directors or indirect actors by themselves. And so again, this is Amazonia. We're suffering the fate of ever joining somebody, attempting to join somebody you do not like. We are facing the fate of a woman being forced to marry a man she did not like. And then the man will do what we call, they will torture you. The syndrome of the tortured woman in a marriage home who cannot return. If she wants to return, she will capture as a slave and made a sex slave to that man who will force her to deliver children, the children which she will not care for. And so, again, this is a symptom of the war. This is Bamenda. They are kidnapping people there in open daylight. This is where the Pope was. This is where the Archbishop Andrew and the rest stood up and said, peace today. The war must end today. Has it ended? No. Has it ended today? No. Is it ending tomorrow? No. What are we going to do? What is the Archbishop telling the Pope, who came there to see things for himself? What are all these people telling those people who came to see it? What are they telling France, who sent his ambassador to Bamenda? They say, peace, I'll dig the streets. Everything is in open daylight. This is an indirect punishment for Amazonians for daring to resist the occupation. Again, we have to continue doing it, and we'll do it till the kingdom come. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. Now, away from that, let's get into the issue of drug abuse, where the women in Wuchuchu today, Monday, joined the growing wave of anti-drug protests sweeping across the southern Cameroons, renewing calls on authorities to intensify efforts to curb the abuse and circulation of hard drugs amongst young people. The women took to the street expressing concern over what they described as the alarming rise in drug abuse, which they say is fueling indiscipline, crime, and social decay among youth in their community. Now, beyond the demonstration, the protesters stormed location believed to serve as hideouts for drug users, destroying makeshift structures they alleged were being used for the consumption and distribution of illicit substances. The Wuchuchu protest is the latest in a series of demonstrations that have spread across communities in Ambazonia over the past several months. Women's groups from different areas have repeatedly marched, petitioned authorities, and demanded urgent action to address what they describe as a growing public health and security crisis. The sustained protest reflects widespread frustration among residents, many of whom believe drug abuse is robbing communities of their young population and contributing to rising cases of violence and other social vices. The government has responded by banning the importation of hard drugs and prohibiting the circulation of those already within the area. While these measures have been welcomed by many community members, others argue that enforcement alone is insufficient to address their underlying problems. Observers say that although public demonstrations have helped draw attention to the crisis, meaningful progress will remain limited unless they are matched with comprehensive rehabilitation and treatment programs. Many drug users are already addicted and require medical and psychological support to recover and reintegrate into the society. Without the establishment of accessible rehabilitation centers, counseling services, and sustained awareness campaign, analysts warn that the recurring protests may have little long-term impact. They argue that tackling drug abuse requires not only disrupting supply chains, but also investing in the recovery of those already affected. As pressure continues to mount from communities across the southern Cameroon, many residents say the next phase of the government's response should focus on rehabilitation, prevention, and youth empowerment, alongside stricter enforcement against traffickers and drug traffickers. Barrister Mbeshia, this is exactly what you've been saying. I feel like many observers and critics also heard what you have said, and they are driving in that direction. And so when this protest happened today in Wututu, I mean, so many persons attested to the fact that yes, the women are doing a lot with the protest, but then this wouldn't do the work. This would definitely not do the work. There should be active programs. There should be rehabilitation centers and you know, the rest to be able to make this work, just like you've been saying. And I was very happy to see this because I am emphasizing that this is exactly what Barrister Mbeshia has been saying. The protest would do little or nothing. But then you're here. Let's get your re-emphasis or any other points you want to join to the agenda you've been setting based on what you know that would work when it comes to drug abuse.
Yes, I've said the essence of government is to secure its own citizens, among them the youths who are doing these drugs. And so since I've said that we needed to do more, or the Cameroon needed to do more, let me just go ahead and tell you what we could have done and what we plan to do. Because as far back as 1961, when we joined this people, what the government of West Cameroon had in place institutions. They set up institutions that could take care of such things. They foresaw that the future youth will go offline. They will do wrong things. And how do you deal with the youth? You don't send them to jail. You try to retrain them. You do something. And you don't just do it like a mother. The mother has a limited source of doing those things. If the mother wants to do it, the father wants to do it, so be it. But the government, as the government, must take responsibility for that. And so, in terms of Ambazonian or West Cameroon government, we contemplated that. And because we contemplated that, they set up an institution. They set up a whole training school in Buea there. It was called the Barr Institute. The Barr Institute for Rehabilitation. It was created in 1965. What was the role of the Barr Institute for Rehabilitation? It was meant to rehabilitate the youths, train them, detoxify them if they're doing drugs, give them training if they were just jobless. You train them for a skill that will prevent them from going around raping women, breaking into stores. And so the Barr Institute for the Youth was created in 1965. It is there. They've abandoned it. What have they done? They have made it a dormitory for the DDR. And so, again, this was the West Cameroon government. We foresaw these sort of things coming to us because youths are changing. Society is growing. And so our own government, as I've just said with the police force, they set up a police school to investigate those things. They created the mobile wing police to handle criminals with guns. Now, in this instant case, they created a whole institute in Buea that is still there, the Barr Institute for Juvenile Children. That instead of sending the child to jail, if you take those small boys doing those drugs or girls, you take lock them up there in prison with other people. You harm them more because they're still young. So we created that institute. If a young child, 15, 16, committed that crime, they were taken there to the Boston Institute instead of going to prison to rehabilitate them, to train them out of the drugs or whatever thing they were doing wrongly, and then they will get back to society as good human beings. Because they have a longer, they have not lived their lives. They are 15, 16. If they really like me, to attain 70 or 80, that's still a long time to go. So these children be sent into jail to mix up with criminals, armed robbers, rapists. How would they become human beings tomorrow? And so again, drug issue in Amazonia, I think it is manipulated. It is actually part of the war now. They are manipulating those things against us. Otherwise, I don't see why the drug thing is only in Amazonia. Today is Bolifamba. Yesterday was somewhere in India. The other day it was in Kumba. The other day it was in Bamenda, and so on and so forth. So this drug thing was only meant for Amazonians or what? But whatever is the case, if they are doing the drugs, we've said that would have been better. There was an institution set to handle these things. That institution is still there. The only thing is that the young people have abandoned it. They have virtually abolished it in practice, and left it to decay. And so again, this is where we went wrong. We went to the wrong place. Instead of improving on such things that would have handled their own drugs, drug dealers, they abolished it. They killed it, and then they stole the money. And we did many things like that. Like in Buea, we had another place to call the Bully Center for the Blind. This were the handicapped, the blind people. The way that they learn how to read and write in your own way. Where is the Bully Center for Handicapped today? It is gone. It is gone. They have virtually killed it. They don't give it money. They pass away the land that was part of the school. And so, and again, this is a warning. Our children shall not be left to decay in ordinary prisons. If you go to Kondingi, for example, you're going to find young children there. Tallest of Indwala, they're not even right there, in Buea there. They lock up these children there for doing what we don't know. How would they continue their lives, assuming that they were doing the drugs? Are they going to become drug dealers for the rest of their lives, either just 10, 15, or 20? Without. And so, ruling government is a government that foresees and prepares for the eventualities. We did foresee these of things coming. We prepared for how to handle them by creating the institutions that were meant to handle them. And so, that is one of the reasons that we fight to restore what we had and then improve on it going forward. That is what we will do. That's what we're trying to do. And I've said it before, we guarantee you an independent ambassador will be 10 times better than the Republic of Cameroon in handling those issues, be it armed robbers in the street, kidnappers, extortionists, or drug dealers. We would be better. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister. And for the last report for tonight, remember some weeks back we mentioned that some parts of the Bamenda Regional Hospital caught fire. To that effect, some elites of the Southern Cameroons have donated 53 million francs CFA to support the rehabilitation of the Bamenda Regional Hospital following the devastating fire that destroyed several key departments last month. Now, the funds were handed over on Friday to the chair of the hospital management, Professor Nguafo, during a ceremony led by former Prime Minister Bali Nyonga. The contribution is intended to support ongoing efforts to restore critical services disrupted by the June 29th fire and strengthen the hospital's capacity to continue providing healthcare to the population. The blaze completely destroyed several sections of the hospital, including the main drugstore, the 180-seat conference hall, the statistics unit, the universal health coverage unit, the offices of the medical advisors, supervisors, the social action service, the library unit, and the hospital canteen. Hospital Director Dr. Louise Richard Njok said preliminary findings indicate the fire was likely caused by voltage fluctuations within one of the hospital's facilities. Following the incident, the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manaoda Malaki, deployed an evaluation team to assess the extent of the damage as the government began efforts to restore the affected services. While those interventions were underway, Southern Cameroon's elites mobilized financial support to accelerate rehabilitation work and help ensure the hospital continue delivering essential healthcare services. Barrister Mbeshia, we might say this is a good development. At the end of the day, the people would have to take care of issues by themselves. Several weeks when we were given the daily developments as it regards to this incident. One of the issues we talked about was the chair board coming to say, oh, in few days, the damaged sectors would be, would be reconstructed. And here we are having, some Southern Cameroon's elites coming to donate monies, millions, to this effect. How do you see these developments, Barrister?
Well, what they did or what they are doing is commendable. Yes, they've contributed the money out of pocket. It's a good idea. Remember when we were talking about the roads in somewhere in Batibo, somewhere in 1 or 2 days ago? I said the people can take the development into their own hands. They should do the same thing like doing in the hospital. But although they are limited, they are trying to buy the computers. Of course, they will not buy the data destroyed. They are trying to put the physical building intact. Of course, they will do it. But according to the doctor, if it is true, it was electrical thing which I had mentioned earlier. Are they going to go rewire the whole hospital? They could. But how far would that take them? It is not only Bamenda. They have a chairman of the board. What is the role of the board? What is the role of the board of that hospital? If the board must be able to handle those things, the board should have some autonomy. The chairman of the board should not be somebody appointed by a fellow citizen, only calling himself the president. The people should take over the hospital themselves, manage it, appoint their own chairman of the board who can be voted out and voted in at a time. That's when they will take full control of whatever thing they are trying to do. That is what will take them out of the Yaoundé grip. Dan Ngwafo, who is the chair of the board, was appointed by Yaoundé. No matter the goodwill of the people in the northwest or southwest, call it Ambazonia, in donating billions, they will not have control over it because the chairman and the board are not appointed by them. They have no control over the board. They are just coming in as strangers to try to help. And then again, that sends us a big, big warning I've said here many times. All these things called boss, they will have no control over them. They don't do anything. They only do what they want them to do. As long as you're coming to give money, they will let you come and give money. And can I remind ourselves again? Remember that we talked at length about the GCE board, something they call the GCE board, which chairman is appointed by the president, which members are appointed by the government. Now the examination leaks, nobody is investigating. We're forgotten about the GCE today. Where are the leakers? Nobody knows. Can the chairman of the board of the GCE board ever tell us what happened to it? He will not. Chapter closed. Can the minister tell us what happened to it? He will not. Chapter closed. Just like you in a hospital in Bamenda. And go for the chairman cannot tell us what happened to it. If the Bamenda people don't like it, they cannot change it. If they don't like it, they cannot change the doctor. They have no control over their activities. If the money they get there is all stolen, they will do nothing. They will only go and complain, and the prosecution will depend upon Mr. Buea accepting to prosecute their own big man. And so again, this is what we fight against. We're not here to over-centralize people, to be teleguided from somewhere, from Yaoundé, or from London, or from Paris. If we had independence, we should have independence to manage our own affairs. Again, what has that board got to do? Remember again, board, we hear something, analyzing the board will take us days. There's something they call also the CDC. The CDC has the chairman of the board. Yet, the CDC is growing palm oil, they are growing rubber, they are selling it every day, they are unable to pay their workers. What does the chairman of the board say? He keeps his mouth closed. You cannot ask, how can these poor laborers work in the farms? They are selling the products every day, they are not stockpiling anywhere. Then they have no salary. And when they have no salary, what do? They go to ask for money from the government. Minister, come and help us. Whereas the government should have been coming to them and say, well, you have been selling produce for 1 year. You have made some profit. Pay your staff, give us what you have left to help the government. Then it is the reverse. And so thank the people for doing what they are doing. But that is not the solution. For them to do that, because it might get burnt the next day. They have no control of who constructs the hospital world. They don't supervise the contracts. They could not say, you didn't wire this thing well. They have no authority to do that. And so once you're not properly wired, electrical fault destroys the whole thing. They come back to square one. Just like as well as in Bamenda Hospital. Or like I think in Amazonia, it will be the same result. Yes, it is commendable they did what they did, but we are sure they will do something physically but they will not restore the data that was destroyed. They will not be able to control it not happening again. That money will be going to the hospital to do whatever thing they do, and then the hands off the whole thing. Again, this is what we fought against, and we're fighting against it. No, we did not get independence for somebody to be teleguiding us from somewhere else. We voted for independence to rule ourselves, to do our things our own way. For the CDC, for example, to work, pay its workers and give all their benefits. For the GCA board to function, write the exams without our children getting afraid of any leakage, give children certificates that are trustworthy. For the hospital in Bamenda or in Buea, anywhere, to work and be accountable to the management board of the hospital, which management board should be responsible to the people. The people around that town should to control that management board. As long as the management board is somebody appointed from the party, by somebody, a stranger who has not been to Bamenda for the past 30, 40 years, we are in for a wrong deal. Again, thanks to what they are doing, I will see people orchestrating those things, former Prime Minister Philemon Yang, who knows the system very, very well. He knows the system very, very well. Yes, we thank the people who contributed, but again, we're afraid. You can rescue that one today. The next day will be Kumba. The next one will be Batibo. The next one will be Womb. How many more times are we going to continue out of pocket and give to projects that we don't have control over them? Again and again. That's why we're fighting to go back to what we were. We shall be able to manage ourselves. Those things will happen. We shall be able to manage them better than what they are doing today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. Thank you so much for being part of tonight's Undaunted. Even at the very time of you, I can see that you have the very young Mbeshia there, and you were able to still do this for us. We sincerely appreciate. Thank you so much for being available for us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, please. All right, when we return from the break, we'll head into Africa, where 8 has been killed, 9 injured in crowd crush at evangelical service in Burundi. At least 8 people were killed and 9 others injured after a crowd crush broke out during a packed evangelical service in Burundi capital, Bujumbura, on Saturday night. The tragedy occurred at a school where thousands of worshippers had gathered to attend a crusade led by popular preacher Chris Ndikumana. According to local authorities, the incident unfolded as the late night service came to an end and attendees rushed towards the main exit. Witnesses said the crowd became increasingly congested as people contested to leave the venue at the same time. The pressure reportedly caused the wall near the exit gate to collapse, trapping several people beneath the debris, while others were knocked to the ground and trampled in their ensuing panic. Emergency responders rushed to the scene to rescue victims and transport the injured to nearby hospitals. Officials confirmed that 8 people died while 9 others sustained injuries and are receiving medical treatment. A teacher at the school speaking to newsmen described the chaotic moments leading up to the disaster, saying the venue had been overwhelmed by the sheer number of worshippers in attendance. He says there were simply too many people, the witness said, adding that their exits quickly became overcrowded as the service concluded. Crowd crushes remain a recurring safety concern at large religious gatherings across Africa, where massive congregations often exceed the capacity of available venues and emergency exits. Authorities have launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding the incident, including whether adequate crowd control and safety measures were in place before and during the event. When we return from the break, we'll go to the globe where Keir Starmer resigns as UK Prime Minister and the Barr set to form new government. Sir Keir Starmer has officially resigned as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, tendering his resignation to King Charles III after delivering an emotional farewell address outside 10 Downing Street. Speaking before hundreds of supporters, government officials and members of the public, Starmer reflected on his time in office, saying he had helped restore and strengthen the Labour Party while leaving the country stronger than when he came in. His departure marks the end of a premiership that began after Labour's return to power following years in opposition. Starmer led the party through a period of political renewal, overseeing key domestic and economic reforms while navigating significant challenges at home and abroad. Starmer's resignation clears the way for Andy Burnham to become the United Kingdom's next Prime Minister. Burnham, who recently won the Labour Party leadership, is expected to be invited by King Charles III to form a government after a formal audience at Buckingham Palace. Burnham, the member of the Parliament from Macclesfield, entered the House of Commons after winning a by-election before securing the Labour leadership. Once appointed, he will become the 10th person to serve as UK Prime Minister since the country's 2016 referendum decision to leave the European Union, underscoring the political volatility that has characterized Britain's post-Brexit era. Following his meeting with the King, Burnham is expected to appoint his cabinet and outline the priorities of his new administration, marking the beginning of a new chapter in British politics. The transition of power comes at a pivotal moment for the United Kingdom, where the incoming government is expected to focus on economic growth, public services, and restoring confidence in government amid ongoing domestic and international challenges. Oh, well, that's it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on 12 stories. Before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made it to the prime headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that one has been killed, 2 injured in shooting attack at Insecurity Resurfaces in Bali Nyonga. Also tonight, we told you that decomposing body retrieved from swamp in Kumba as insecurity continues to claim lives across southern Cameroon. Tonight, we told you that at least 7 passengers traveling from Bafoussam has been kidnapped, while southern Cameroon's women sustain anti-drug protest calls for rehabilitation centers as drug crisis deepens. We also told you that Southern Cameroon's elites donate over 53 million CFA for Bamenda Regional Hospital, while 8 has been killed, 9 injured in a crowd crush at evangelical service in Burundi was on the African scene. While on the global scene, we told you that Keir Starmer has resigned as UK Prime Minister and the Burnham set to form new government. That's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing to the news on 12 stories. On behalf of Barrister Mbeshia and the team of technicians behind tonight's production, it's good night and God bless you.